Hey, I'm Jose Galison. This is the Liberty Movement YouTube channel. Today, what I'm going to be going over with you guys today is basically this is going to be an introduction. This is the first video. This channel is kind of based off another thing they were doing elsewhere, so kind of giving you the deets there. So we're going to go into what is the Liberty Movement. So the Liberty Movement is mostly, for now, it's a Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group. If you want to be part of it, go ahead and go to Facebook. Only two prerequisites. What do you think of taxation? Wink, wink. People know what's up there. And then the other part is because we have two questions again. The second question is, are you okay with this being non-political? So, because this is a non-political thing. I know it blows people's minds when you say something like liberty-minded or libertarian-minded and non-political, but it's possible, and I'll get to why I think it's what needs to be done. So yeah, the Liberty Movement is a Facebook group right now, but we're trying to be a movement. That's why it's called the Liberty Movement. I know everybody's heard Liberty Movements other places. A lot of times they're associated with Ron Paul, but I mean, no one's kind of using it right now, and why not try and make something happen? All right. How it was formed. We started out, it was created by Kieran. He was the founder. He got me and Derek, two of the other admins together, and he kind of pitched us the idea. The idea being that he wants to try to increase liberty through cultural means, through non-political cultural means. That was our biggest thing, with also like a little side of like want to try to keep it decentralized as well. The reason being is everyone's heard the quote before: "Politics is downstream from culture." So yeah, I mean that's where it's at. So it's the culture. I mean, so yeah. So I probably ought to elaborate a little bit on why it's non-political. The reason why we're non-political is, I mean, if you think about it, think about Republicans, think about Democrats, think about Libertarians. Who's Republican going to vote for? Someone with an R beside his name. Who's a Democrat going to vote for? Someone with a D beside their name. Who's a Libertarian going to vote for? That's where it gets fucking tricky. Good luck with that. You ask any Libertarian their position when it comes to that, it's going to be all over the place. And you know what? We have lots of good arguments for every different position. Whether you're a non-voter, whether you're a voter, I mean, whether you believe you got to vote for the D or you got to vote for the R. I mean, in the past few decades, that's kind of gone away. But in the past, there'd be a lot of people vote for the Republicans or even the Democrats, especially with a lot of the civil rights stuff in the past. But I mean, to be fair, that kind of argument's kind of sailed. But either way, I mean, people are all over the place. But at the end of the day, we were trying to create like a big tent movement without sacrificing principles. And you cut out politics, and holy shit, all of a sudden now we all get along. It's kind of mind blowing once you take that out, because it seems to be that's a lot of what the arguments are with libertarians. I mean, obviously not all of them, but a lot of them. You can be an anarchist, but be a voter, and the next thing you know, you're being accused of being a statist. Just so you guys know, my position, not the movements. I'm a non-voting anarchist. I actually think politics doesn't get you where you need to go, but that's beside the point. All our different admins have different opinions on the matter. It's just that's what divides us, and that's not what we're doing here is about. I want to shout out, since I'm kind of going over how it was formed a little bit. I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but I want to give props to people who got this started. There's not necessarily get started, but kind of helped us out at the beginning. The two big ones are John Bush and Pete Quinones. John Bush, we had a meeting with the beginning. He helped us out with kind of like how to work it out at the beginning. Just little like kind of helped us out kind of deal. He's a little bit of an entrepreneur. If you guys don't know him, check him out. He's got some good shit going. I mean, he mostly sells Kratom, but he's also got his Freedom Cells thing. Check that out. It's kind of the way I say it's parallel to one of the things we're doing. I mean, I'll get more into that later, but check him out. I mean, if you don't even end up going with us, go do his thing, something. One thing I've been saying a lot is just do something. Just do something. Then Pete Quinones, he helped us out at the beginning, just kind of was there for guidance here and there, and kind of was there from the beginning. And I mean, not to be like we're on some celebrities nuts or something, but it helped at the beginning, to help get us moving. We've only been around for like 2 months, but we're already at like 1,500, and the 1,000 that was like in the first month. So we're still trying to grow. We think we have a really good concept. like I said, it's cultural, it's non-political. So what we are right now, like I said, we're basically like 1,500 members in a private group of people who have basically agreed that taxation is theft and that they are okay with working together in a non-political fashion. By the way, I meant to go on this a little bit ago, but when we say non-political, we don't mean apolitical. There's a difference. Non-political, apolitical. I know a lot of people get all whiny and like, we can't do political stuff. It's fine. Go do it elsewhere. There's plenty of other good organizations if that's your thing. I mean, go do it. No one's going to stop you. This is all voluntary. No one's saying you can't do other things. Just try your best to keep it out of there, and we will moderate the content to on the page. I mean, we just straight up will. We're very private property type people, and that we think that principle kind of applies there. I mean, so if you're in the group, people know what we're talking about. We'll pull political posts. We don't care. And it's nothing on spite. It's just we're trying to curate our stuff, and nothing wrong with that. So, like I said, though, we have do that elsewhere. That's fine. We're not against politics necessarily. We're apathetic in a sense as a movement. I mean, like I said, we have multiple admins, and our opinions on that vary. So that's different depending on the person. I already gave you mine, so you know my bias. I try my best to be as unbiased as possible. I mean, I try to say a lot that I'm like I have my positions, but I mean I could be wrong. I've been wrong about a million things, so I'm not gonna be an asshole to anybody about it because I could change my position a year from now. And I mean, I think I have the correct position now, but who knows? I mean, so there's no reason to be an asshole to somebody just because they have a slightly different opinion. Because I mean, who knows? I don't think I'm wrong, but I could be. So I'm mature enough to understand I'm not all knowing, and I mean, I try to get to my positions from using logic, but I mean, it doesn't mean I'm right. I mean, I had a different position on politics a year ago, and probably had a few years before that. So, I mean, it's kind of a lot of the point here too, is like bringing people together and not being about our differences. Yeah, we've got now we're at a point where we have 10, 10 like local chapters, what we call like our micro, which are like local based, which we'll get into. 11 including England. England is our largest one because this is a global thing. We're trying to be as global as possible. I mean, obviously there's some limitations because with the world, you know, a lot of countries, it's not, they probably don't even have access to this stuff. Yeah, we already have 2 sub chapters, which is something we'll get into later. Which is for me is like that's my shtick. That's what I really like. So, all right, now we started out with this vague idea, and as time went on, we kind of refined it, made it make more sense to us, and simplified it to some extent. And so one way we did it, like David, one of our other admins, he's the head of the Canada chapter. Oh, I forgot about them. So we have 12 chapters, including them, because we have a Canada chapter as well. Yeah, he had he came up with a good concept of the macro and the micro when we were talking about culture, because culture is one of those things people have a hard time defining because it is a very vague concept. It's what is culture? It's just what fucking people do. That's all. That's really all it is. But he broke it down to the macro and the micro, which I kind of like how this works because this is kind of how we kind of sort of set things up for it. Macro is going to be your large stuff, your big stuff. This is going to be your music. It's like Eric July backwards. This is going to be documentaries. Like the Monopoly on Violence with Pete's thing, or just stuff like that, like large sweeping things that like kind of inject liberty into the culture. So that's kind of like the macro. And yeah, that's one thing we're trying to influence. And then we also have the micro, which is, going to be, we look at this more as being like a localized thing or more on an individual level, this is where I think it's really important. But I also think they kind of are cyclical and work off each other. But yeah, so the micro will be localized chapters, so it's by state. So that's what I was saying before. We have 10 U.S. chapters, we have 1 England chapter, and 1 Canada chapter. So when I say we have 10 U.S. chapters, we have 10 different states that have chapters, and they're all at least in the double digits now. I think our largest is Oregon, that's like 66, and Florida's like in the 50s, I think. But yeah, we all have chapters, and they're all based on state. It's actually kind of cool. Derek is kind of like our branding guy, and he's been making them cool little like flags to just kind of work on branding, just so it looks cool. Like we're in the Florida one, and he took the Florida flag and swapped out the colors of black, yellow, and gray, since we're kind of like we kind of played up, black and grays, agorists, black and yellows, and caps. We just kind of like those colors and how they play together. But yeah, he came up with some cool flags. He did from Oregon as well. Yeah. So yeah, we got the like I was saying, we're on the micro. We're talking about the chapters. So sub chapters. That is the thing I really try to stress, because the idea with the chapters is to get them large enough to where you can start breaking up into sub chapters below each chapter. So it's kind of hierarchical in that sense, but obviously everything here is voluntary. Like at no point are we ever holding a gun to someone's head and saying you have to do this. It's just and we have a very loose vision of just, doing things culturally is very vague. So, I mean, as long as you fit within that and you're not like, doing some sort of like political campusing while under the banner, at the end of the day, we can't really, if you do that, and if they end up doing it, it's not really anything we can do. But, we frown upon it, yeah, the sub chapters, we already have 2 sub chapters. Those ones are kind of harder, and we're still pretty new. So we still have some growing to do before we can break up into sub chapters, because it takes a while before you have enough people for a given area. So we have in Oregon, they have 1 sub chapter. I forget where it's at. I think it's Washington County. And they've already had, I think, 1 or 2 meetups. And we have the Tampa Bay one. We did a Tampa Bay sub chapter in Florida, which that's the one I'm in. Yeah, we've already had 1 meeting. We've already been talking about planning other ones. We were talking about going to the range for the second one. The first one we just did a beer and burgers type thing. That was fun. I mean, that was one thing. Like when we're trying to work on culture, just having groups of libertarians, even just social groups. I mean, I know a lot of people. The only questions when we ask them about the chapters, like, what is it? It's like whatever you want to be. I mean, and it's just kind of loosely affiliated with a group, and so whatever you want to be. And like our first one was a beer and burgers type thing, and we had fun. We had a blast. We just hung out, and I think there's a lot of value to that. Just just coming together. Especially if shit ends up popping off. Shit hits the fan. It's good to have peeps that have similar views to you in a localized area. That's kind of a lot of why I said earlier we're parallel to the Freedom Cells thing, because that's exactly what John Bush's thing is too. I think we have some notable differences, and I think that's why I try to promote his as much as I can, because for one, I've said many times, rising ships raises all tides. So like, and I also think that they may appeal to different demographics to some extent. So, and at the end of the day, I don't care if we completely fizzle out, and as long as we're able to do something to somehow increase liberty in some way, and if that's like me getting people to go to John Bush's Freedom Cells or something like that, that's cool. I don't care. Like, I mean, all I care about is that increase liberty. Like, I don't have any like goals of like making money off this or anything. I'm just something I'm doing in my spare time. So at the end of the day, it's like whatever I can do to make things better. That's kind of how the rest of the admins are too. I mean, we're not against money. I mean, if it ever gets like we get like find ways to be lucrative, I mean that's cool. Whatever. I mean, I don't care. I mean, we're capitalists, but it's not really the goal. I have my own things. Kind of got lost in my rant there. Oh yeah, so the sub chapters. Yeah, we already had the Tampa one. We've already been kind of talking about maybe doing a second one, like maybe we were talking about doing like the gun range, but with ammo prices now, that's I'd probably cry every bullet I shot. But kind of give you ideas, like just like social or like range meetup. Some people it might be cool to have a book club. Whatever your thing is. Yeah, I mean that's definitely in Florida. If the Florida man meme, there's a reason to it. I'm not getting that group to read books. Just saying. I mean, they're not stupid. I mean, a group of liberty-minded people is probably the cream of the crop. But yeah, it's not. I don't think it's going to be the book club. But I mean, others might. Others are going to have different hobbies, and even then, you might do subchapters to a point where you can break out the subchapters off into separate subchapters based on interests. So. But for now, we're just trying to get to a point where we actually have subchapters and, kind of go from there. Yeah, I feel like I went out enough into the subchapters. One thing I want to point out is how the macro and the micro interact. For example, here's a good example of macro that's already happened the time we've been there. We have someone named Michael. I won't give his last name because I don't know if he's comfortable with that. But we have Michael. He wanted to do a COVID documentary, and he used the liberty movement that we have as a vessel to find people to work with, and we already made kind of semi as a result of it, as just also because there was a calling for it. We went ahead and made a film chapter, so it'd be like a macro chapter. Then so like the localized would be our micro chapters. So we already made a film one, and he, like I said, he already has like kind of linked up, and he's already got a rough team. And so like this is like macro type stuff that we're enabling through networking by coming together. And yeah, so he's kind of networked through the group and found different people that could help him in one way or another to do this documentary. And he's already got his first interview done. So I mean, hoping this keeps going well. But you know, and he's kind of there's already like the way our group is. We have a lot of like big names in there. And so there's a lot of like, you know, prospective interviewers. It's kind of like set them up networking wise. It's good for us just to come together in that sense. Like, so there's your macro. But now I want to use this example as how the micro could come together to, you know, make it happen. So like one thing he brought up that I hadn't even thought of when we had a meeting at one point about the documentary is how the chapters can be used to help. Because he's only one man. You know, he can try to travel around a little bit, but most likely he's probably not going to end up with the type of budget that, you know, something like even like Pete with his Monopoly and Violence, which even he admitted he didn't have a huge budget, but you know, there's a lot of money that goes into that stuff. But one thing that Michael brought up is with these chapters, especially we set down you know, get a good structure, you know, get a lot of people in a lot of different places, then now you have people. If he wants to interview somebody, say like he's Florida, for example, because I forget where Michael's at. I think it might be Michigan. But yeah, you say there's somebody that's in Florida that he's interviewed. But, you know, hit up the chapter. He knows people that are, you know, pushing for what he's pushing in Florida. You can hit us up and tell us what we need to do, feed us questions, whatever, you know, like stuff like that. And so that's where the macro and the micro come together, because now we set up this like groundwork of like the micro chapters all over the place. It can enable all sorts of projects and different little things. So it's, the possibilities are endless. So it's like we're kind of creating a network here essentially, and there's a lot that can be done with that. Yeah, so there was my example of how they came together. So I brought down the macro and the micro. So I want to delve a little bit into the future and like what we're going to look into, what this is going to look like for us. And like the hurdles. The one big hurdle that I'm really thinking of is the Zuck, you know, Facebook. Well, there's a good chance we could get Zucked at some point. I mean, maybe it's just me being paranoid, but I've been noticing a lot of BOOG profiles trying to gain entry lately that just created their profile that day. I mean, Fedboy put a little work into it. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm just being crazy, but there's been a lot. It's kind of weird. So, I mean, there's that. There's the Zuck, you know, like say if we just let all those pages in, you know, who knows, they might start flooding it with that type of content. And we all know what happened to the BOOG not too long ago. Those groups, a lot of them are gone, you know, and that's why they're the CNN boys or whatever now. So, you know, there's that. So, I mean, the Zuck thing is a real possibility, especially the larger we get. Luckily, I think we're at a spot right now where it's not really too big of an issue. We only have like 1,500. We're probably not really on anybody's radar. But that's the thing to think about. And so we're already looking to like ways around it. You know, we've talked about doing a newsletter, doing like email lists, because I know like Tom Woods has a newsletter, and I kind of delved into writing a little bit. I'm not the greatest writer, but I'm okay. We have one of our other guys who's big into writing. He's done he did a speech at a protest not long ago. It was pretty baller. But yeah, and we have another one of our admins is Josh Ferguson, who has he has a YouTube channel, The Hourly Struggle. You guys could check him out. He has a lot of political content, so don't take that as a movement endorsement of him. He understands that, and it is what it is. I mean, it's cool. I actually like his content a lot. But point is, like, he usually doesn't share the political content in there. But you get what I'm saying. He's one of the admins, and he has political content that kind of goes to my point earlier, where we're non-political, not apolitical, and you know, in that he's representing himself, obviously, not the movement, so on and so forth. So yeah. Yeah, so we've been looking at ways around them, sending the newsletter, the email list, and the big thing that I've mentioned before is, to other people is the chapters. We need to get these chapters going. We get people moving to their state chapters, and you kind of set in a groundwork. And the more decentralized you become, and the more spread out, the harder it is to mess you up. Because, for example, like even just from a tech perspective, if we have all these like network of groups, if we ever get to a point to where it's like we're a big target. Actually, for one, I think we'll reduce our where we're at on the radar, because instead of having 5,000 people in the main group, and then there might be 2,000 in the group, and then some in these other little groups, other places. So it kind of divvies them out more, distributes them more, and kind of like keeps them under the radar to where there's a big number, like a big group. But anyways, I'm kind of rambling. It'll kind of just from a tech perspective. I think if you have a network of groups, it's not just one group. It makes it kind of harder to take down. Not necessarily. I mean, they can take them all with one, but chances are probably won't. Even beside that, just having the chapters, especially the sub-chapters, this is why I stress the sub-chapters so much, because the sub-chapters are where you can actually, they're going to be so localized that you actually are people you've met. That's the whole point of the sub-chapters. It's like real life. Because if you have a state chapter, I don't know, maybe some people might make an effort to make it out too, but I mean, let's be real. No one's going to go to the state chapter meetings. I mean, most likely. I mean, maybe in the future if it ever grows and becomes a bigger thing. But right now, no one's going to go to state chapter meetings. Now, if you have a sub-chapter that is like, say, some nearby city, or, say it's county, or however you guys decide to break it up, there's a good chance you'll actually probably go. Like, we had great showing at our first sub-chapter meeting. Zuck can't get rid of in-person connections. You meet someone in real life and you get their number, and you know where they live, stuff like that. You made a real connection. I mean, because all this tech stuff is kind of an illusion. You meet somebody in real life, there's nothing they can do about it, And say we ever did get Zucked, it's like now we've kind of, if we say we get to a point where we have a good infrastructure of people all over the place, it's like you can just you can hit up Tom and he can hit up Bob, and I mean, like I said, we're trying to work on like an email list so that it won't be an issue too. So that'd be something we're going to be kind of working on. And also, we have this YouTube channel, obviously. One of the main reasons I wanted to mention or do this stream was for the YouTube channel too, to kind of like let people know what we're kind of thinking. Obviously, things can change, but this is kind of what we're thinking right now for the channel. What I plan on doing, me personally, is I am probably, obviously things can change. Maybe I might see I have a knack for something else or whatever. I'm intending on probably trying to do like interviews. The first video was supposed to be with a pretty big guest. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to jinx it, but we were all set up for tomorrow. Things fell through. Life happens. I'm not trying to say anything. And we're going to reschedule for later. I mean, you never know. That could fall through too. But I think it kind of worked out because it probably was good to have like an introduction video anyways. But yeah, like I said, it fell through. But I was planning to do an interview with him. And he's a pretty notable person, and he just started up a side project that is much more in our vision. Like, his main thing is definitely more political-ish, kind of adjacent-ish, but his side project is nothing to do with that. Completely different, and that's kind of a lot of what we're looking for to promote with the channel. So I'm going to start trying to do interviews with people like that. I don't know, like say if we have like documentary filmmakers, or say people want to do an interview about like sports stuff. I don't know. I'm just kind of loosely I'm gonna try to do interviews, and it's not gonna be political. It's gonna be focused on culture. One thing we want to do with this, though, my point being, I bring this up, is I don't see myself. I'm a very busy guy. I've got me and my wife both work full time. I have 2 kids. We both work full time and both have a family business as well. So we're busy people. I'm probably not gonna be able to do, but probably knock out. I mean, I would say like 1 to 4 videos a month tops. I'm not gonna be regularly doing it. So we created this channel to some extent to try to also use it kind of as something that we could have people use. Like say you're a new. And say you want to start a podcast and you've just been thinking about it for a while, and it fits within the vision that I've been talking about here. We would love to host your content. If you want to use this as a springboard to kind of like use the brand, as long as you fit within the vision, I don't see what issue there would be with that. Also, we wouldn't mind maybe having like recurring things. Like if you just want to pop in on here and like say you just want to do like 1 or 2 videos, like obviously if you want to go do your own thing and have your own channel, that's cool. But we also are open to like having recurring things. Like one thing we had someone in our group brought up, Haley. I mean, you'll know who I'm talking about, and probably people in the group probably do too. Yeah, she brought up a great point about like sports. She brought up like, why do we not have any sports channels? And she's not saying that we should have like some libertarian sports channel or whatever. It should be more like a sports channel that just happens to have libertarians. Like you don't have to preach about, the non-aggression principle while talking about like football, but just do a show on, let's say you do like a weekly thing and go over like the highlights and stuff. But I mean, you don't have to make it that. But I mean, I'm not even a big fan of like watching sports. I played a lot of sports in high school. I've always been fairly active, but like I've just never been one to spectate. I just don't like to sit to watch. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, a few times I've flicked on Sports Center in the past like few years, just like here and there. It's generally terrible. Like, I mean, it's hardly even sports. There's always some stupid political crap on there. So, like, I mean, that was a great idea. I thought that was genius. So, like, my point being, like, say if there's somebody out there who wanted to start doing a sports show, and like, say they wanted to use us, whether it was just a springboard their thing that they're trying to do, if they just want to start out there as a launching pad, spot where they can kind of build off the movement and get more eyes on it, or if they just want to, or if they want to be a recurring thing. I mean, that'd be great if we get to a point where like, say we have like a reoccurring like weekly sports show, or we have a weekly like cooking show or whatever. That'd be cool. Like I only mentioned that because I noticed. I haven't watched it yet, but there's someone who keeps posting there, the Culinary Libertarian, and I think it's cool. I mean, I don't really know how much I haven't watched it yet. Like I said, I don't know how much they inject libertarianism in it, but who cares? Like the kind of one of the points we've gone at before is that it doesn't have to beat you over the head. Even just having people in those positions, it just kind of naturally comes out. You don't even mean it. Uh, yeah, so like I said, that'd be cool. If there's anyone out there that's trying to do that stuff, get with us, let us know. Obviously, like if you ever don't want to do it again, if you just decide you don't want to do like be on the channel anymore, then go. Like I said, this could be like a launch, like a springboard for people's YouTube channels, or it can be a spot for reoccurring things like the sports one. Oh yeah, one point I brought up is I think it'd be cool if, like, for example, I don't know, Dave Smith. I know he's talking about like in basketball. If say a sport, like one of the sports people was able to nab him for an interview, I think that'd be fucking cool for like talking about sports or going over highlights kind of deal. If you had him in like the hot seat, talking about the weekly stuff, and you had different people, I think it'd be cool to see him in a different light, talking about sports and not, like politics or, or libertarian philosophy or whatever. Yeah. So with that, I mean, I think I've kind of covered most everything I think of. I don't want to make this too long and kind of right about where I want to be. Yeah, like I said, like what I covered here, I was just trying to do like an introduction. I feel like it might be a little confusing for some, but hopefully you'll see as we go. Obviously, if this is your thing, check us out on Facebook. Go to the Liberty Movement on Facebook. It's a private group. Like I said, it's 2 questions. It's what is taxation? I think if you should be in that group, you should know what the answer is to that. And then the second question is, are you okay with this being non-political? Like, essentially, are you okay with this isn't a place where we're going to play the R&D games or the L games either? We're not going to do so and so 2020 or so and so 2024. We're going to focus on other stuff. And like I said, we'll remove those posts if need be. I feel like we're generally pretty fair. I mean, we've had some people get upset before, but I mean, these are rules we laid down. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I have no problem with those discussions. Yeah. Yeah. So we covered that. Yeah. So I'm Jose Galison. I'm out. If you have any questions, hit me. Post some questions in here. I'll answer back. Yeah, I hope to see you guys soon. I'm about to go on vacation, so it might be a couple of weeks before I get in here again with my special guest. Like I said, I gave a little hint on the Facebook page, RAR. Yeah, and that's it. Deuces.